This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it and you can qualify it through a variety of methods, time, people, places, things. But at its heart and at its core, it is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and of course, the Auburn family. Speaking of which, let's get a few of those members here. The voice you're hearing, I'm your host, Kyle Loomis, back again for episode 86. We are plugging away towards 100. Alongside me this evening, it is not Mr. Austin Scott. He has the evening off, and as well he should. It is his anniversary tonight when we're recording on a Sunday, so congrats to him, his lovely wife. Hope they are having a good evening. In his stead tonight, the co-host of the No Huddle podcast here on E2C Network, which focuses on Auburn football slowly. It is Mr. Wow, Jared, I literally almost messed your name up tonight. Like, I'm so used to saying Austin, it literally slipped out almost. Okay, Jared Davis, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having. Well, you led with Mr., and that usually means like a dignified person, and I'm not. So that probably threw you off. You're like, Mr. Yes. Yeah, it's just Jared. Yeah.
See, this is your first time on the Auburn Experience show, so you're actually in good standing. So I won't mess with you too much.
Yeah.
But no promises. We'll see how things go.
Well, I will say I understand why we need a hint. That was well done, the intro. I almost stood up, actually. I felt moved.
That is the goal here.
Yeah.
It's the goal to move people to tears, whatever happens.
Move them to hit the like button is what you want to do. You want to move them to hit the like button.
You're like a pro at this already. I don't even have to say it at this point. Hit the like button.
Hit the like button.
All right. Let's get into what we always start the show with, Auburn potpourri. For those of you that are first timers here, this is just, we go through a bunch of random Auburn news segment and topics from this week that are somewhat relevant before we get into the main discussion points of our show. So let's start right at the top with something that I think a lot of people got excited about this week. It's been teased about for quite some time. Coach Pearl has talked about that there was a game that was being worked on to be scheduled for his basketball team for this upcoming season in Birmingham, and now we know what it is. The Auburn Tigers will take on the Purdue Boilermakers in Birmingham at the BJCC. I forget the rest of its title, but the big arena in Birmingham this year, December 21st, 2024, with a return trip scheduled to Indianapolis. So 2 neutral site games for both of these teams, not at their respective home courts, but will be on December 20th, 2025. This is a big time matchup between 2 great programs in basketball. I have to think, Jared, this got you excited when you heard this.
Yeah, I mean, well, I always go scared first because you want that out of conference. You want that out of the SEC is so tough. You're like, oh, give me the gimme games in the non-conference. But from a fan perspective, I mean, it's Purdue, and they've been dominant. Now they are losing their big guy, but I think they'll stay. I think they'll stay very, very. Yeah, I know, right? I think they'll stay a good program. It's going to be fun. You mentioned 2 prominent programs. How crazy is that to say that about Auburn? I mean, 10 years ago we couldn't have said that. So, I mean that's a marquee matchup. That's going to be fun for the fans. Are you going to go? Do you think you'll?
Here's the problem. Here's the problem I have, Jared, and you know this as we live in the near vicinity of each other. I like to go to that Atlanta game every year that they've been playing, and it's not been announced yet. And this makes me think this is going to replace it. That's not a news item, folks.
I agree with you. Good point. Yeah.
It's just a feeling I'm getting having covered this stuff for way too many years now. To answer your question, I would say if the Atlanta game is not going to happen this year, then this would be my next best ticket. Because let's be honest, Jared, it is expensive to go to Neville Arena and watch the Tigers at home. You have a better chance of getting a ticket for a reasonable price at one of these larger arenas on, a neutral site game such as the BJCC. So,
Well,
hope
even
so.
yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Yeah, you have to know somebody to get reasonable price tickets in Auburn. Other than that, outside of that, you're paying a crazy amount. You're right.
Well, I know a few people, but they ain't helping me out any. So I
They
apparently know the
helping
wrong
you.
people.
You need to find different people. Then that's the thing. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like I need to get rid of you, then, because I know you. So you're not helping me
All
out.
right. Well, I can't help you. I have no tickets to give. But yes. If you got rid of me for that reason, I would understand.
Well, all right, regardless of getting rid of you or not, I know we're both excited about these two matchups coming up. Just the name power alone is going to be really exciting. So we'll continue to look forward to that this year and the next year. Let's take a little non-sport swing at things here first. We like to mix it up. This is the Auburn Experience after all. Something really cool this week as part of SEC Media Days that we're going to talk about, folks, so hold your horses. But there was something that was really cool called SEC Startup. This is the inaugural year of it, and it's a competition essentially for student athletes, and I guess partnering with some, in the Auburn case, with some current doctoral students to create a business and pitch it to prospective people about getting funding for it or support for it. And they ran the special about it as part of SEC Media Days. And I'm happy to announce to you folks, as it should be, an Auburn group has won the initial SEC startup competition. Allison Tanner, David Edmondson of track and field. Some of you may recognize those names. And also David Hollinger, a doctoral student, have created a digital athlete app that's going to be integrating AI and is wearable, help them keep track of their overall performance. And that's a great thing here. So, Jared, we continue to innovate, but we also continue to dominate as the Auburn Tigers on and off the field.
You were telling me about that story, and I didn't even know about that program. Is this the first year they've done it?
It's the inaugural one, and the Tigers own the inaugural crown.
So there you go. Well, you can't win them all if you don't win the first one. So I think it's just keep it rolling. Next year is going to be the same thing. But that's pretty cool. I mean, you said you may not know a lot about it, but they created like an AI technology. Is this like a wearable thing, or do we have any idea?
It's wearable, AI powered, and data driven. I'm using a lot of terms to make myself sound. Really.
You act like you created. Do you know what this is?
I understand the.
They didn't give you a sample. You need to say we're doing a show. We need a free sample.
We just talked about I don't know anybody, and apparently I wrong to know people. I know the wrong people.
Okay.
So
okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll work on that. We'll do another show and do it again, and maybe get a device to sample.
Yeah, but congrats to obviously Allison, David, and of course also both Davids, David Hollinger as well, for winning us the first one. As you said, you can't win them all unless you win.
You don't win the first. That's right.
This is a topic that I know that's near and dear to your heart and mine, and several way too older men out there spending way too much time playing video games. Folks,
I don't know what you're talking about.
It is here. You know exactly what I'm talking about. College football 25, the first week of this glorious game being back, is here. How much time, how many hours have I spent? We're not going to talk about that. There may or may not be tutorials.
Let's I think yours is being tracked. You're putting it online. We know how long you're spending on this.
And that may only be what you see.
And then some. Yeah.
So the first week of college football 25 being out, I have played with Auburn the most, of course. I would assume, Jared, that you've played with Auburn on this, correct?
I have. I've thrown many interceptions wearing the orange and blue. Pretty bad.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I will tell you this. I initially was not a fan of whatever playbook they set us up with as the Hugh Freeze offense. Yeah. I spent a lot of time today in the lab, probably ran the same play 100 times, trying to time it down with different defenses and stuff, like how I can stop throwing interceptions. And run the ball properly. So like you said, I am putting stuff online for you guys on YouTube to watch tutorials, uniform things. But
so Cal, you're a married guy. So if you call it a lab, like, do you get more time in there? I think I'm going to start doing that. Hey, I'm going to go to the lab and do research.
It's surprising that you bring that up, because we had this conversation this week, me and Jessica. I said, look, I know this is one of those times where I tell you I'm working and it doesn't seem like it, but I actually am. And the thing is, I have proof to show you.
Yeah.
that I am actually producing something. Now, what we do after that, and I don't come out of the room in that time frame, that's
That's a
besides the
whole
point.
different story. Beside the point.
Besides the
You're
point.
in the
But
lab. You're in the lab.
in the lab playing with Auburn, it sounds like you've had great experiences too.
Yeah, I mean the game's amazing. The intro to every I played a buddy who we played at Neyland Stadium. I mean, just they have all the details down. It's awesome if you haven't played it. It is a little difficult. It's rusty, right, Kyle? We haven't played it since what 2013,
That's putting
2014.
it lightly.
Yeah, and back then we had a mobile quarterback, and now we kind of don't. I like the mobile quarterback, so I'm having to learn to be a pocket passer. But
Mm-hmm.
it's fun. I told you before we got on here, I did just play a friend of mine. He was Georgia, and it was 14-14, 10 seconds left, and I throw a pick six and lose. He walks it off with a pick six. So I'm still a little hurt over that, more than a grown man should be with a video game. What's the most? What's your favorite part of it? I mean, you've played it a good bit.
I got to be honest with you. I think it's the variety of things, even if we're not just talking about Auburn specific things, like the fact that when you play at night, it's different. You play at midday, it's different. You know, the sunsets look different. The stadium, the shadows play differently. I like how I was even showing Jessica with a clip we just put up online about how the crowd roars as you start to get, they realize you're breaking away. The roar goes up. Might have had a really great play I ran earlier today or something like that.
That was a bit of a humble brag. Let's go back. That was a humble brag right there, people, if you didn't catch that.
Making Peyton Thorne look real good for this upcoming year.
You read that well. In fact, I think you misread it when I was watching it, but you cut him up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Like you recorrected and you scored like a touchdown from 20 yards out.
A little bit longer than that. Oh, come on.
Okay, forgive me. 40 yards out, maybe longer, but it was a good play. I was proud of you.
That's probably the few ones I've had out there. So we'll leave it at that. Fun times to be had. Plenty more. We're going to be doing lots of content here at E2C Network related to that. So if you enjoy it, obviously YouTube's the place to be for that. You can find clips that we're putting out on social media. Let's do rapid fire here, stuff that I'll just give people to think about, because we got a new guest here. We got to get into the main topics here. So rapid fire, rest of potpourri for you. I want to give a shout out to War Ready, the Auburn basketball team, alumni basketball team that made it to the second round. Obviously, they did not make it past that the way I'm talking about it, but a good showing from Wendell Green, especially this year. Folks, saddle up. I got a bunch of stuff to tell you. Tiger Rags, the store, is back online. Season tickets have now sold out for football 2 years in a row. We're going to be talking about the MLB draft a lot next week, so stay tuned for that. Fan Day for Auburn football was announced for August 10th. Country's Barbecue, an Auburn staple, is changing locations just next door. So if you're a local person, be looking for that. Cam Stutz made it to the Roughnecks in the UFL, almost said the XFL. And finally, baseball announced a fall ball game with FSU in Pensacola for October the 12th. So that should have you covered with the Auburn news this week for the most part. I'm sure we missed some things in there.
Can I add one thing real quick? Do we have
that's exactly what I was hoping for. So drop it in.
Who did he play? The U.S. played. Who did they play? Did you see JT Thor hit that?
Oh,
that three?
What a good thing to
what
bring
a
up.
Shot.
I did. He is. Listen,
he went off.
I think he gets thought about or missed a lot when we talk about Auburn in the NBA. You got your Jabari, you got your Walker Kessler, your Isaac Okoro, your Chimo Kiki. And I'm not saying this is the way it is for everybody, the way it should be, but I feel like those guys is kind of the pecking order of how people think of Auburn in the NBA. JT gets forgotten about sometimes. Yeah. And yes, we're talking about him playing for South Sudan in the Olympics. And
they almost won off of his shot.
So JT Thor nearly beat LeBron James, folks. LeBron James. Sorry, that was. You know what would have been so good is if after JT Thor makes the shot, he just like runs away. LeBron James. That's a good one to bring up there to round out potpourri. Okay, folks, let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything. We're going to be talking about SEC Media Days, the general stuff and the Auburn stuff. That's all coming up right now. So let's start off with the Auburn-related things, Jared, about SEC Media Days. But we're going to try to maybe take the tertiary stuff, like the things that are important to Auburn in the SEC Media Days week, but we'll use the second segment to talk about the specific things that Coach Hugh Freeze talked about, maybe things that were asked of Asante and everybody else that came. Let's talk about the general SEC stuff. Your impressions, sir, and thoughts about us being in Dallas this year to welcome in Oklahoma and Texas. How do you feel about that? Does it feel weird that we are officially doing this thing?
Yeah, it does feel weird. I mean, it's still, I didn't even get used. Didn't we go to Nashville for a while? We were Birmingham,
It
or
was
has it been
Birmingham.
Birmingham?
It was
It's
Birmingham for the longest time. I think one year we went to Atlanta and then came
okay.
back to Birmingham. And this
I'm thinking
was,
about the
yeah,
basketball SEC tournament. My apologies. Yeah,
I
it is
think
kind of
that's
weird to go out to Dallas. It is weird to have them coming in. I was talking to a buddy yesterday, just the whole landscape of, where USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten. So yeah, it's weird. It's going to be an interesting year. There's no divisions. They're just taking the top 1, 2. We're not playing LSU. We're not playing Ole Miss, but LSU is a bigger deal. So it's going to be a different feel, Kyle. I mean, what are you thinking about it?
I have accepted it. I'll be honest with you. I think that they fit the best out of all the possible ones we could have added into the SEC this year. And so to me, it's kind of one of those things that if it's going to happen, once again, I'm going to thank Greg Sankey for doing a lot of things, I think, in a very thoughtful, methodical, and smart way. Am I glad that we're only doing this one time? Yes. They announced this week that we are going back to the Southeast, the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah.
So back to Atlanta next year, in case you were
Okay.
wondering, Jared.
Okay.
And
Yeah. I knew Birmingham had been the most prominent spot. But yeah, Dallas. It's a little weird having it out there, but I get why they did it.
it
Bringing
makes
the
sense.
new guys in. Yeah.
It makes sense. Welcome you in. It's special, all that. Yeah, okay. So now the pageantry is over now. We had our little sizzle reels for Oklahoma and Texas. Y'all are in big boy football now. And let's be honest, the SEC, as we've been saying, has been playing the best football overall over the last decades. And it just got even more difficult with Texas, who looks to be a serious contender for the national title. Oklahoma, a serious contender in some regard to factoring into the SEC, how we all map that out. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I don't have it pulled up, the rankings of where everybody lined up. But, Auburn found themselves in the bottom half of that, but I think not too far away. But in your mind, I think what you've seen, most of the SEC and most of the media members are predicting this to be a Georgia and Texas thing. Is that kind of the impression you're getting for this year in the SEC?
Yes. Yeah. Those are the two that people consensus. Those will be the top two in the SEC championship game.
And so we're just now beginning official talking season. Do you think that's fair? Is it a fair thing to just assume Texas and Georgia, and that's what Auburn fans need to prepare themselves for, one of their rivals contending again?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think in a vacuum, yes. But I think if you go I haven't looked at Texas' schedule. Georgia's got a tough schedule.
Yes, they do.
And no offense, but Georgia, that hasn't necessarily been very difficult in the past few years, and this one's very difficult. So if they get there, they earned it. And I'm not saying they didn't earn the other years, but they really earned it this year because it's not a gimme. They could be very talented and not be one of the top two based off a record.
Yes, they absolutely could be. Let's dive into a few things that were happening this week in regards to SEC media days and things that may be like tertiarily related to Auburn football. Greg Sankey, in case any of you guys were wondering, and whoever the officials that made this decision, they will not be penalizing for horns down.
The horns down.
I went on a little bit of a rant about this. I actually think it's the dumbest thing in the world for Texas fans to get offended by it, for B, for anybody to regularly do that. I'm fine if everybody wants to drop one of these every once in a while, but I just think it's so silly, and like, we can do better than horns down. Your thoughts on the no penalization and horns down?
I think it's great they're not penalizing it. I mean, it's an emotional sport, and they're trying to take emotion out of it, and that's what makes it so great. So, but I'm with you. I like to see more of you like doing celebrations that are known to your team versus doing ones that are anti the team you're playing. So I am more in favor of whatever you're known for doing that. But it is funny that people get so offended by it that they even had to make a statement that they're not going to penalize for it. To me, that would have just been a given. Like I would have never thought that person needs a penalty. So I think that's the right call not to do that. Just these kids are emotional, man. I mean,
Mhm.
like I don't like the. Let me ask you this: do they still do the penalty now, where if you get a celebration penalty before you score, they take it off the board? Is that still a thing?
I
It
don't
happened
feel.
to. Okay,
I
they
don't
they
know.
created that rule about 7 years ago, and LSU kicker did it, and they pulled it off the board, and I haven't seen it called since. But let these kids celebrate a little bit, but you know,
Yeah.
make it positive celebrations.
Yeah, I'm fine with it if you want. Everybody wants to just kind of have that. Just it's new to the SEC, right? To be able to
Yeah,
do that, so everybody's going to do it. I get it. I'm being a grumpy old man complaining about it.
A&M's probably going to care A&M Oklahoma are going to care the most, right? I mean,
Right.
they got a history with Texas. I mean, these kids, the Auburn, they don't have a history with Texas, so it may not be a thing. They know about it, but it's not like they've grown up doing it.
Right. So there was discussion at SEC Media Days about expansion, and initially, when Greg Sankey talked about it in his open thing, he was really dodging of the topic. I felt like this year, not that I felt like we were going to have anything revolutionary said about future expansion or things like that. But maybe there were some more conversations he had throughout the week with certain media entities that maybe kind of let people think that this is the direction or that this is the direction they might go. Really, I don't think there was anything concrete that came out that Auburn fans need to be interested in. Like, look, we're Auburn fans, and we think about expansion. We're thinking of people we have connections to: Georgia Tech, Florida State, maybe a little bit of Clemson, things like that. Who doesn't want to get Virginia and everything after the debacle in basketball? So there's, and we are connected
True.
to that school because their founders came from our founders came from Virginia. Our colors are similar because of that. Um,
Oh,
but what do you think? It doesn't sound like there's anything concrete happening right now for SEC expansion. Do you believe Greg Sankey when he implied that, or do you think there's things happening behind we just don't know?
there's always things happening. I don't know how far along it is. I would be surprised, Cal, if 5 years from now, Clemson and Florida State are not in the SEC. Here's the reason why. They're not staying in the ACC, and we don't want the Big Ten to get a footprint down in this area. I
Yeah.
don't know that we actually want them. I don't know that we need them, but those are the last two attractive products for football, and you can't let the Big Ten come in and take them. So, and get that TV audience. So I think 5 years from now, maybe sooner, I do think FSU and Clemson will be. And the big hiccup, and I'll end with this. I think the only thing keeping it is ACC wrote a tremendous contract apparently where
Yeah.
you can leave us, but any revenue you make through the end of the contract comes to us.
Yeah.
Any revenue on a on campus revenue generating thing. So that's the hurdle they got to get over.
Yes.
But
Yeah. There's lots of hurdles in this whole discussion and things we're never going to be privy to in all of this. And I think those teams make a lot of sense. You're battling the Big 12 now. They seem to be the biggest suitors of the two of them. That's another discussion for another day where we have who do you really think? I've got some not controversial, but some out there picks that a lot of people have heard me say on other live streams about who I think the SEC should add to increase their footprint that makes somewhat sense and gets you into some different TV markets. But we'll leave that for another day. Uh, I want to talk about the talk of SEC Media Days, and it seemed to be how tough it is to play in Jordan-Hare Stadium. I mean, we got commentary from a ton of different players and coaches from other teams in the SEC talking about SEC. Now, I know that some of our media members came in probably with that plan to ask those things. They know that plays well on social media. There's nothing wrong with that. But there was a lot of very honest opinions from people like Kirby Smart and some of their players being asked, "Hey, what's going on with playing in Auburn? Is there is it cursed there, or how is this tracking?" Mississippi State talked a little bit about it. How does that make you feel, Jared, to hear that kind of talk coming out of SEC Media Days about your home field advantage?
it felt good. I mean, I screenshotted the headshot of Kirby Smart. I mean, Kirby after the game last season, like the first statement he made to the reporter was not
Mhm.
about the game. He was like, "What about this environment?" and that's a rival coach who really probably doesn't want to say anything good about Auburn. And he basically said, I think he said, I don't care what Vegas says or anybody says. Auburn is the toughest place to play in the world. Those were
Mhm.
the last sentence I know was a true statement in the world. I, you have buddies, even Georgia fans will say, listen, Auburn is brutal to play at. It's funny, there's a lot of other lists coming out, including EA Sports, the video game, where we're like in the 15th area.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Um, that's not what I hear from even rival fans. And but yeah, you made the funny comment. The Oklahoma quarterback,
Yeah, yeah.
he was talking to Carson Beck about it, and Beck was like, "Man, I don't know, that place is cursed." So he's like, "Good luck."
Yeah, listen, we're getting a lot of commentary from Oklahoma fans here at E2C Network on all of our content these days because there's a lot of excitement building around that game, but I don't know that they are ready for what they're going to run into in Jordan here in terms of the fan environments. We don't know what the team's going to look like right now. I feel like pretty good about that, but we do know that the fans are going to bring it. First time Oklahoma being there, and they already are kind of having that built up in their minds. Brent Venables talked about it a little bit at SEC Media Days too. So maybe final notes, not really big things from SEC Media Days, but just talking about those, like I said, tertiary Auburn things. Robbie Ashford's a name we're familiar with. He left Auburn to go seek another opportunity at South Carolina. He is in the middle of what seems to be backup battle right now at South Carolina. I believe they have already named someone else the starter. But we have seen Robbie Ashford in action and know how dynamic of an athlete he is. And he seemed to at times be getting better as an overall quarterback. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like he's going to be right now in running for the starter there. But I figured they're going to utilize him. Don't you think, Jared? We did.
Yeah, I mean, you have to utilize him. We ran for over 300 yards against Alabama 2 years ago with him at the under center, and we weren't passing, and they knew it. So he's got a skill set. I mean, yeah, I mean, I would love to see that possibly be utilized at fine tune a receiver position or something like that because he's just so athletic. But I get why he wants to do the quarterback. It's what he's done forever, and hopefully it works out for him.
Right. And any other thing that was discussed that would be important to Auburn from SEC Media Days was a lot of discussion around NIL and the government getting involved in that. There were really no specifics. I think if I had some big takeaways for Auburn fans about the overarching discussions at SEC Media Days is there was not a lot of concrete things out of understanding where the SEC Media Days is going to be the next year, because you really didn't get a lot of hardcore things about expansion, just asking and expressing a need for government oversight or help and standardization and NIL, things like that. And the rest of the time it was spent, kind of an Oklahoma and Texas palooza. Although, final note, I forgot this almost. Did you see the conversation between Cole Kubelik and Sam Acho on the set of SEC Network in regards to comparing the Red River rivalry and the Iron Bowl? Did you see that, Jared?
No, but I'm guessing Cole defended us pretty heavily.
Cole Kubelik was preaching, man. I have never seen a person look like they wanted to punch somebody live on the air. When Sam Acho, who I'm still not, I'm confused on what his connection is. Obviously, he has a connection with the Red River rivalry, like Oklahoma or Texas. I don't know. I feel like it's Oklahoma. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't
He
know. I don't,
tried to say he had no desire to attend/experience the Iron Bowl because he felt like the Red River rivalry was better than the Iron Bowl. And you should just go watch the clip, is what I'm saying.
I'll go watch it. Let me just go ahead and tell you, it's played at 12. Any game played at noon, I don't care what game it is. If you play a game at noon, it is not the best rivalry. It's just not.
Yes. Yeah. It was some pretty
I'll end
interesting
with that.
takes.
Yeah.
He had some points, but he basically made Cole Kubik's points, and Cole just had to sit there while he was talking and just he had not even a smile on his face, but just that pursed lips, just and then just calmly but firmly made his case for the Iron Bowl, and I would say won.
Isn't it funny? I think a testament to what the best one is when everybody else's is compared to yours. It's like, oh, is it Michigan Ohio State or the Iron Bowl? Oh, is it Red River Rivalry or the Iron Bowl? Is it Florida State or the Iron Bowl? It's like pretty obvious it's the Iron Bowl if that's the one everybody's always comparing to.
There's a reason that it has had the most implications over the college football landscape over the last several years between Auburn and Alabama. Even if Auburn is not a national threat to do anything, they can certainly wreak havoc with it, because when it's played in Jordan-Hare especially,
Oh yeah, anything can
anything
happen.
can happen. So when you talk about Auburn and SEC media days, specific notes, we are talking about mainly our representatives, and that's going to be obviously head coach Hugh Freeze, who obviously has to come as the head coach. For those of you that weren't aware, your other three representatives, you usually have three every year, and they're typically upperclassmen. Some of them were there. Peyton Thorne, starting quarterback, is one of your representatives this year. Then Eugene Asante, linebacker, heart and soul of the team, maybe, with going, let's work, all that good stuff, energy guy. And then Keldrick Falk, a sophomore, is your third representative and second on the defense at Auburn and SEC Media Day. So before we dive into what Coach Hugh Freeze said, because I know that's what we mainly want to discuss here, your thoughts on that group, especially the Falk angle, like having a sophomore there. That's very rare, if at all, I believe.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me, and I didn't know much about him. I think Freeze went on, you may know the verbiage, but he went on to say he's one of the hardest working guys on the team. I think definitely on the defensive side. I didn't get a lot out of the team players. They basically kind of give the answer you expect. Freeze talked a little bit about his offense. I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
He talked about calling plays. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a mix of three people, I guess. And when it tough situations, Freeze will call. What are your thoughts on that? I wanted to kind of ask somebody else. When I read it, I was more confused than before I read it.
Yeah, I think this is a bigger talking point than it needs to be honest with you. But I understand why it needs to be addressed, because you're bringing in Derek Nix, who is, I believe he has offensive coordinator experience, but not a lot at this, and especially at this level. But he's been a co-offensive coordinator. He's been around for a while, right? He's not a newbie at this, but you are handing over the reins to somebody that's maybe fresh as an SEC offensive coordinator, and you've got an offensive coordinator for a head coach, and this is his team. So a lot of people assume, hey, Hugh Freeze is going to run the offense. That's not necessarily the case. What Jared was referring to is his breakdown of how it would happen is that Derek Nix is the play caller. But on third and longs, quarterback coach Kent Austin is going to be heavily involved in that decision-making process with Derek. And the way I took away, Jared, that he described his part in this is as the overseer / veto, which makes sense, right? You're the head coach. You should be able to veto. This isn't something that's like foreign. So to me, I thought it made a lot of sense. Like, I never thought of the quarterback coach getting to have a say in third and longs. But when you think about it, we're obviously going to be throwing the ball unless we're fighting for field position at some point. Does that not make sense to you? Or, I mean, did you find that as a novelty with Ken Austin being involved?
No. I think something I found with Freeze is that Freeze, and some people would say not with his past, I think he's just an honest guy. And I think he just tells you too much sometimes. I think this is standard protocol. I think you got three guys on the headset all the time. And the head, Kirby's like, no, we're not doing that on third. You know what I'm saying? So I think Freeze is just telling you more than we probably even need to know. And sometimes you're like, huh? Is that normal? I think it is normal. I think you're right.
And I tell this to people all the time. If you will just listen to the head coaches, especially Hugh Freeze, but from what I've learned about him, you're going to have a lot of your questions answered. Look, it's not a debate I want to open up right now, because he answered it yet again in how he was talking about Peyton Thorne's your starting quarterback, whether you like it or not, folks. Get over it. I don't care if you don't like it. Get over it. It's Thorne.
It's Thorne.
So listen to what they're saying, because Hugh Freeze, like you said, is maybe giving us a little bit more than he should at times. But it's interesting to note that. Here's something that I thought was very intriguing / confirmation of rumors from last year's staff during his press conference. And this is a direct quote from him. Players sense a chemistry amongst the staff. So it's one thing for there to be good chemistry amongst the staff, and they all acknowledge it. They all can feel they understand it. But he says players sense a chemistry amongst the staff. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even hear that statement till you just said it. So I think that's huge. I think you got to have everybody pulling in the same direction,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not last year. That was obvious. So that's key, man. Because if the players don't sense it, they may not tell you this, but they're not giving 100% effort because they don't even believe you don't believe in it, so they're not going to believe in it. So yeah, having the coaches being seeing the players seeing that, I just think and we forget about this. Last year, forgive me if correct me if I'm wrong, but like Thorne came in after spring practice last year,
After summer workouts.
after summer workouts. Freeze got in here late, hires a new coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
It was a get through
Yep.
year. Get through this. We don't want to talk about it. We're fans. We all pay a lot of money, but it was a get through year. This is a year where we do need to see a little proof of concept, and I think we will.
Absolutely, absolutely. He talked a lot about different topics and different players. One thing I think that I really liked, and he was prompted on during his press conference, was talking about Damari Alston. Because look, Jarquez Hunter is a starting quarterback. I mean, quarterback. Well, no, starting running back. Uh,
Who
and sh-
knows?
and should
Maybe
be.
you're on to something. Yeah, quarterback.
I hope not. I hope not. No offense
I'm
to
kidding.
Mari. No offense to Mari.
Yeah,
But I like you running the ball, not throwing the ball. But halfback passes have worked, so
there
we'll
you go.
see. Damari, he talked a lot about him being a vocal leader. Now, sometimes I think people will overdo things, and when they start hearing
Yeah,
coaches use that type of verbiage, they're like, well, that just means he's not as involved on the field. But no, this is a guy that plays the back up to Jarquez. And why do I say back up? And for those that are listening to the audio podcast, I'm doing air quotes. Yes, in the hierarchy of things, there is a starter, there is a person that is the second to come in after him. But Damari has sometimes been in with him if they run a 2-back set. And so this guy is a legitimate threat and the heir apparent to the running back spot once Jarquez leaves. But what's interesting is the dynamic between the two of them that Coach Freeze described, where Jarquez is the just put his head down, go to work every day type of person, and Damari is too. But Damari has taken on that vocal leader type of thing. So I think, Jared, we just got a preview of who's going to be your representative for next year at SEC Media Days from the offense, because you're going to have a new quarterback in theory. I would expect this to be Thorne's last year. So what do you think? Damari Alston representing us next year, from what I can tell from Coach Hugh Freeze.
Real quick, if I may, I can never see air quotes and not think of Joey on Friends. If you ever saw that, that's where he misused them all the time. Yeah.
I'll just start saying, quarterback,
Quarterback.
good
for
podcast
those
host.
for those that can't see, Kyle is using it correctly the first time. But yes, I think Damari Alston. The thing about him, to me, I think Jarquez. His best game is our best running back, but Damari probably reads the hole better than anybody. I mean, he's more patient. Now, Quez has gotten that way as well recently, but yeah, Damari's a legit player. That is not one of those statements of he's saying that just to make him feel a part of the team. He's a vocal leader that is going to have a big playing role, like you were saying. So, and he might be the speaker. He might be representative for us next year. I don't know. Hey, listen. From day one, that kid has been all Auburn. He was when he committed. Ever since then, he's talking about, look out, we got players coming, big eyeballs on Twitter. He's all Auburn, man. So he'd be a good one to be pushing your campaign.
Yeah, I think we're probably watching the budding of Auburn's next great leader, and he already is. That coaches acknowledge that, but the one once the torch is passed officially to him, because some of these upperclassmen move off, whether that's to the NFL, to other transfer portal opportunities, or just graduating. We may be watching that. There's so many things that we could talk about here, but I think something maybe to round us really well here is, I don't have the full quote to be fair, but Coach Hugh Freeze talked towards the end of his press conference about having the feeling of, I get to coach at Auburn. And that resonated with a lot of people. And what do I mean by that? And what was he talking about? He was talking about how honored he feels to be the head coach at Auburn. And some people will juxtapose that with how they felt other recent people felt, or maybe showed how they felt to be at Auburn and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of people that resonated with how, not emotional, but very forward and very honest what he was about how he feels about his place at Auburn right now. So that do anything for you, or is that just, another little feel goodism? What do you think?
No, I mean, I think here's the deal. People that love what they're doing, like that means they're going to put their all into it. And, we've had coaches that maybe didn't do that. I think Freeze really is, you can call it second chance, but also at a really good university that I think he's always had an affection for because he's friends with Gus. So he knows Auburn. So I think he truly loves Auburn. And, that doesn't win football games, but It's cool if you win football games and your coach also loves your university. So, and I think he's going to get both of those. He's got one of those. He loves Auburn. We're going to start winning. So, yeah, I'm going, it's a feel-good story.
It is a feel-good story, but the reality is when you care about something, you tend to put your maximum effort into it.
You put your max effort in. That's 100% right. You don't want to lose it. If you love it, you don't want to lose it. So he's going to give it everything he's got.
Exactly. So if all it is a feel-good thing right now, I'll take it because that's a great starting place, especially from where we've been over the last couple of seasons here. All right, final note here, just about roster and stuff like that. Coach did express through a variety of interviews that he felt like the roster was complete. Probably no more surprises, additions to the roster. But what I found most interesting, and this is the things that I was listening for, Jared, how does he feel about certain position groups? And he expressed that he felt that our depth at the defensive line, especially interior, was really solid. Now, what he was forward about, and this has been some people's concern, people were concerned about depth, but also the skill level there. And he said, look, I don't know where they're at in terms of competing with the SEC as a unit. But in terms of my concerns about depth, them being able to go out there and put a good product out on the field, I'm obviously kind of putting my own words into what he was saying, but that's what he expressed some optimism about. And also about the running back room, he talked about how much and the offensive line as well, how encouraged he was by that. So that's some areas of concern for Auburn fans that I don't want to sit here with our orange and blue glasses on and act like everything's hunky-dory, but I feel like that's got to encourage you if you're an Auburn fan.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the two biggest question marks are defensive line, especially the interior unit there, and quarterback play. And I mean, let's be honest. Very easily could have beaten Alabama. Very easily could have beaten Georgia. You got the New Mexico State debacle. That's an 8-win ball club. What we had last year. If these guys improve from last year, your schedule is actually a little easier. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to. I'm feeling optimistic right now. We'll probably go out there game one, and you have to be counseling me in our little chat, Kyle. But right now I'm feeling good. That sounds good that we have the bodies to compete. At that point, they got to go out there and just compete, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, what I'm hearing, just to kind of round out our thoughts, is a program, whether we're talking about roster, chemistry, outlook, that's in definitely a more solid place than it was when Hugh Freeze arrived. Hugh Freeze knew when he walked in the door, there was a lot of work to be done. But I think from some of his commentary, he got there a few weeks after that and was like, oh boy.
Big turnaround.
This is going to be rough for a little bit. So
yeah,
this sounds like you can be encouraged. And this sounds like an SEC Media Days I walk away from being cautiously optimistic about where Auburn football is heading. So a lot to be excited about from that. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for episode 86 and our commentary on SEC Media Days in general and for Auburn. Jared, it has been fun getting to hang out with you personally, and
thanks for having me.
Talk with us a little bit. Is there anywhere people can keep up with you online or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm pretty boring. I mean, you can find me on Facebook. I don't do the TikTok thing. Kyle's gonna have to introduce me to that. Let me know how to survive that arena, but. You can reach out and find me on Facebook. So, and definitely feel free to do so. Happy to chat. Thanks for having me, Kyle. And I'm looking forward to a great season and more Eagle.
And of course, we're going to be excited to listen to you and AJ on No Huddle this season. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you for stepping up to do that again this year.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
You can find me on X at Kyle Loomis 24, and of course, follow E2C Network everywhere. And I do mean everywhere. If it's not somewhere, tell me and we'll get there. But follow all that stuff to go. Episode 86 in the books. We appreciate you all listening. So we talk to you again. War Eagle.
War Eagle.